Thanks for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started, even though we might have a few other commissioners join us. And just for those that are new in this space, when you want to talk on the microphone, you have to push the button below. And I was kind of hoping Mayor would be here to welcome us all, but I don't know, Commissioner Kolpak, if you'd like, as our liaison commissioner, to just kick us off, and we'll do a round of introductions.
Sure. Well, it's good to see everyone here, and welcome, and thank you for your service on the Arts and Culture Commission together with the commission. The Arts and Culture Commission actually was my first entry into city government. It was the first commission I was part of, and I've been on it ever since. So some of you have been on this a lot longer than me, however, as I look to my left, Deb. And others, but really looking forward to the conversation today. It's really going to be an overview of the work that's been done to date and the results of the investment that's been made, and then maybe a conversation at the end about where do we go from here. So why don't we do a round of introductions? Denise Kolpak, Fargo City Commission.
Hi, I'm Deb Williams, Arts and Culture Commission. I'm the long-term member that Denise was referring to. Been on the commission since the beginning, also past chair.
Tracy Wavatney, Arts and Culture Commission and Horseman Area Neighborhood Association.
John Strand, City Commission.
Dave Pepcorn, City Commission.
Nicole Crutchfield, Planning Director.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tori Benders. I'm on the Arts and Culture Commission, first year, so still learning.
Good morning. Monica Brown-Ecker, second term on the Arts.
Hi, Anna Johnson on the Arts and Culture Commission. I do all the arts.
Megan Elshaug with the Planning Department.
And I'm Danielle, and I'm on the Arts and Culture Commission as well.
Also on the Arts Commission, we have a few of us. Tracy Jordery, our current chair, is traveling today. She would be joining us, but she's literally in the air. And then John Offit, who's a longtime member, and Joshua Zais, who's a newly appointed board member. And so, we're excited about this joint board, City Commission, and Arts Commission meeting. We've been talking about it for a long time, and we've hit an important milestone, 10 years of the Arts and Culture Commission being appointed and in process. So we have about maybe 15 minutes of presentations, and we'd like to open it up for dialogue and discussion. We did invite a few of our other arts organizations, the Arts Partnership, the FM Community Visitors Bureau, and just to kind of talk about arts and culture in our community at large as well. So when Commissioner Kolpak, our former board member turned city commissioner turned liaison, she asked us to look at trying to develop a study or analysis of our public art master plan and the results since the Go 2030 adoption. So for those that might not know the quick history of the Arts and Culture Commission, in 2011, the city adopted its comprehensive plan of Go 2030. And in that comprehensive plan, through significant public engagement and outreach, the beautification and public art investment was asked for, and one of the top 3 or 4 priorities listed, right up there with flood protection. And so with that, the recommendation in the Go 2030 plan was an Arts and Culture Commission. We engaged in a quick analysis and study with our arts leaders in our community, and the short story is the Arts and Culture Commission was born. And with that work, it is set by ordinance. We have requests to have downtown representation, neighborhood representation, artist representation, and at-large members by ordinance. It does sit within the Land Development Code, which is a little unique. And when we do the Land Development Code rewrite, we will probably be looking at that actually ordinance itself with the Land Development Code. When we started out to look at the analysis of our work, it took us a while to figure out exactly how we want to do that, but we ended up hiring Reach Partners. Reach Partners has helped us. Rachel Asselson and Anita Hoffarth has helped us with some other board and commission work, as well as Rachel Asselson particularly was very helpful in the Fargo project with us and some project management when our key artist passed away as part of during the Fargo project work. So what's coming forward is basically we wanted to make this a user-friendly document. This will be coming in front of the Arts and Culture Commission, looking for an adoption and support, and it'll be therefore then forwarded to the City Commission for receive and file and support. And so what's coming is basically infographics and some data analysis that we will walk through. And then we're open to questions along the way, or we can save those till the end as well. We also kind of a shout out to Tracy Wilbotny and Monica Brown-Ecker, who helped us in some more focused case study work as we did this. So I wouldn't be remiss to say, to start out first, why are we here? Why do we exist as part of arts and culture in our community? And some of you might not know, but the Americans for the Arts is a national organization, and they do annual assessments, where we're extremely thankful to our local arts agency, the Arts Partnership, for conducting routine inquiries and surveys to help us with this national data. Basically, you can think of this work as the census, kind of the U.S. Census version of arts in the United States. And through particularly to our MSA, this is the results of that, basically inquiry of what people think in our community related to arts and culture. And so this is how we know what we're doing and how it matters and why the work is important. So one of the first things we did is start cross-analyzing our data with maybe significant investments in our public realm and our transportation data, because we were trying to figure out how many people are we actually impacting or involving with. And so when we compare the data within those, the traffic counts with the images, I shouldn't be remiss to point out Anna's Johnson's work at the very bottom here, but these were the middle three, the Roger Maris mural, the Four Seasons Skyway mural, and the Moon Also Rises were all in response to a call for public art. The community water tower was an infrastructure investment, and I'll talk more about that as we proceed. We'd be remiss to say that we don't work with many volunteers, as well as panelists and partnering organizations as part of this work. Every time we do a call for public art, we have a very tight selection process, if you will. The board members themselves don't sit on the selection process. We try to keep arm's length and follow best practices. And so we work with experts who have submitted their names that they'd be interested in participating. And then we conduct, just like you would for our commissioners, requests for proposals or RFP process. Except for we lean on the community experts. They could be faculty at the universities. They could be CEOs and arts leaders and nonprofits. And on occasion, I know the Arts Partnership has offered to lead a couple of these when we've been short on staff. We've hired them to help us with some of this work as well. So we're going to highlight not all the slides that are in the ROI or the analysis of impact, but some of our favorite slides in terms of kind of curious points, if you will. And so many people don't understand where the money for our public art program has come from. And we've categorized that into capital funds, grants and foundations, as well as actual general fund dollars, which are the public arts funds. And of those, you'll see at the bottom, the direct artist stipends related to that work. The capital funds, you can imagine the 64th Avenue Bridge or the water tower, those sorts of funds for those projects came from other grants or other infrastructure projects, and just a small portion of that was spent on including artist work as part of that. The grants and foundations was a combination of the National Endowment for the Arts, Arts for America, and the Kresge Foundation. when we talk about the types of art, so this is probably our number one question that we receive from the community is how do arts engage, how do we get a project, how would you do a project? And they come in myriad different ways, but some come from a specific grant that, so we started, some of you might know the Fargo project and through the National Endowment, that actually started pre-Go 2030, Arts Commission. And so we've been folding that work into that. And that's kind of leading a type of work called creative placemaking. It's a type of art, social engaged art, creative placemaking. And some of them have come from community requested projects. Some are the actual calls that we do. Some are capital arts where the infrastructure, and some is that public. We have one in terms of public-private partnership, and that's the sandbag sculpture across the street over here at the where that came from, the Lions Club, and it's donation and work. And so if we think about goals and strategies, do we want more of one type or less of one type, or how does staff support those types of art projects? And so we have some ideas on that. As we look at the types of calls for public arts, we've basically we are running a track record of about once every 2 years, and the pandemic interrupted that flow a bit, and we've had to reevaluate a little bit. So this is what I would call, in our general fund, we have set aside money that is used for actually doing stipends for artists as part of a call for public art. And in 2019, we got a big push, if you see, between, because one of our goals was like, how do we get more outreach? How do we get more engagement? And then how do we connect this work with the other strategies that the city of Fargo is working on, such as the Core Neighborhoods Plan and or other community interest projects? And so how do we get more bang for our buck, if you will? And so it just so happens we received a Kresge Foundation grant. It was the third installment of implementing the next phase of the Fargo project. And so that is where we kind of co-designed with the Arts Commission and at the time, Joe Williams, Brad Bachmeyer, and John Offit helped us kind of reinvigorate the call for public arts process and make it a little bit more user-friendly and then do direct outreach. And through that work, we were able to increase our response by double, basically from 5 to 16. And then with the grant awards, we were able to basically match that between general fund dollars and grant dollars to double that outreach as well. And so we've learned a lot through the Kresge work, Kresge Foundation work, and there'll be more to come as we move forward. So we have also categorized our types of public art projects, and everything from temporary performing arts to mural to sculptures to infrastructure and utility box wraps. And so on the day-to-day, you might see, just to kind of steal a line, kind of neighborhood interventions. That's what we see the utility box wraps being, or neighborhood toolkits. And probably the best one or the most difficult one was with the school, working with the Fargo School District, working with Sharon Ide at the time with the public school district, working with students to create a combination of art installations and get those wrapped. And so it's a super meaningful project. I will say the staff load on that project was quite high. And so when we talk about the meaning and how you quantify that with staff load, we're still trying to figure out how best to do that. But a little bit on those points. And then this is probably the last of my favorite slides, is when I think about what the city of Fargo is really great at, is how do we integrate with our other departments? And so as part of Call for Public Arts, as well as other ideas, other departments have initialized or initiated their own art projects through us. And so Megan and I serve on, in their work as how do you work with artists? How do you find an artist? How do you do this work? That was where the planning department helped supported the other departments in implementing their projects. And then lastly, as we measure back against the Public Art Master Plan, which also had lots of public outreach, it was being done in 2018, around the same time as the Downtown in Focus Plan. And the community said these were the themes that resonated with them most. How do we make sure we're not anywhere USA? What is unique about Fargo and our region? And these themes were the most. So you can see those themes integrate into things like the panels for the City Hall, and the art call for that, and in other avenues as well. So I'm going to turn this over to Megan, and then we just have about 2 more slides. But one of the things we've really talked about, the hard data that we can quantify, and all of this work is got a spreadsheet that is available for anybody to peruse. And but as we talk about what's next for 2025 and beyond, we're at a little bit of a question mark, if you will. And first of all, the data that we just present doesn't really get to some of the soft data in terms of staff load and project management load. What we learned from the Kresge work and increasing those calls for public art is this project management expectations or needs. And so if we think about doing a mural, how do we equip our artists with project management tools on top of that? A lot of artists don't go to school or go into business practice. And so how do we equip those artists with project management tools as opposed to, or public outreach tools, engagement tools. And what we learned is if you take a mural, about a $15,000 mural, you almost need $15,000 worth of staff or administrative support, everything from doing the press related to that to other coordination and logistics. Also, as we move forward, the bike racks are there and Ironman there are projects where we've had heavy staff investment when it comes to maintenance and management. And so for those wanting to know where the current bike racks are, they're in storage as because they keep getting hit and or rusted, and the original artist isn't quite available to fix them. And so then what? And so that goes back to policy and procedures and working with our Public Works office and other departments. So we also, just like any good facility management, have an asset management report. We finally got an appraisal, and asset management had to bring in an expert from Minneapolis to do that. There's just not art appraisals and plentiful around here. And so, what do partnerships with other organizations, say like the Plains Art Museum or other experts in that work, and how that work? And so I think one of the concluding points from the staff perspective is we've kind of reached our maximum, if you will, in terms of knowledge and skill set, and needing to either hire experts or find experts as a consulting measure. Megan and I are the 2 staff members that support, as well as Miranda or Emily in terms of office management. And so what you see is what you get when it comes to arts management in terms of staffing. One last part of the ROI is we did 5 case studies on how we could learn more and to learn more from the artists. And so I'm going to turn it over to Megan we just have one that we're going to highlight, which is probably, I'll just say unbiasedly, our favorite. And so we'll move forward.
Yeah, so up on your screen before we jump into that one, the other 4 case studies are up there. So Anna was mentioned previously, and you've heard a little bit about the 64th Avenue Bridge project, the Juneteenth celebration, and the Four Seasons mural that's over the pedestrian skyway over Broadway. So there's a lot more information. If there's questions on any of those, we can certainly talk more about those. But this is Dan Keck's Believe in Us project. It's part of a larger worldwide project, actually, called Inside Out. This is one where what his project is took portraits of students and staff at Madison Elementary and displayed them on the school for a number of days. And what's really exciting about that is it's so much more than just those portraits. There was so much that went into this project. Dan was part of and worked with the school in the Madison neighborhood for a number of years. And so he had already built up those relationships. And so what he was able to do is working with the school and work within their programming and kind of shaped that project and really featured the students and the teachers at that school. There was a lot of coordination, and so you can see that with his statement up here. It just speaks to the fact that he's in the neighborhood and has been doing work in the neighborhood and has built up those relationships, and that's one really important aspect of having those relationships and building upon what's already there, rather than just kind of coming in and creating something for people. So there's some takeaways, and I know Nicole will talk about it in a little bit more detail, but we learned a lot from this project, and as Nicole has stated, and we've also taken what we've learned as part of this project. And so there's some takeaways here as an outcome of that coordination with Dan Keck, but we've talked a little bit about those relationships, having the community be engaged, co-creating together. When the project was complete and there was an unveiling, there was a community celebration. So there was coordination with community groups that are also anchors within the neighborhood. There was food. There was just a big celebration to make that project even more meaningful.
So I think we're here to, I don't know, Tracy or Monica, I kind of took all of the presentation part, but if you had some points you wanted to make, or we can open it up for conversations. Did you want to say anything, Monica?
Yes, I had the honor of participating in several of these conversations with the artists. And I just wanted to point out that when we marry that language of economy with what culture means to our city and the fact that it expresses what our society is and who we are, it's really important to remember that in addition to the community that it immediately serves, these art projects, they boosted local economy as well. All of the rentals that were needed of machinery, buying materials, using services, that is incredibly important in achieving any single public art project. So I just wanted to make sure that we remember that. Thank you.
And from a process standpoint, it was fascinating for me to be part of this specific project, to take that look back at 10 years. It's not often that as any commissioner or any business, right, you get a chance to kind of say, what have we done? So it was really neat when they started bringing the information forward to go, wow. And the things that stood out to me the most is that first page, that first infographic, the why, because Fargo's asked for it. So it was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why we're doing this, because there's a need. And we've also shown that it's healthy. It's part of a healthy community, a healthy, mature community. And the other piece that was really interesting to me is kind of finding the gaps. Like you said, what do we do well? Where are we excelling and where are the gaps? I mean, that public-private partnership actually kind of surprised me. There's more of those out there. So you can't manage what you're not measuring. So it was really a great honor to be part of this process. Plus, as a new commission, I think that's wise to kind of put that stake in the ground, say where's the new benchmark. So I'm pretty excited for the next 10 years, and I was really, again, I'm honored to be part of this first 10 years. So thanks for allowing me to do that.
Do you want to pause for some discussion, or John, you look like you have stuff you want to say?
Well, it's really fun to be around creative thinkers, and our job as artists in being involving art is to evolve our culture and our society. One of the best keynote speeches I've ever heard years ago was Winston Marsalis, the trumpet player, musician, but he spoke about how art precedes change and creates and fuels change and creates the space for change to happen. And those artists who are out there and helping us visualize that future really have a huge role. So it's really fun to have that happening here. in Fargo, and to see what you've all done and what you do, and especially the reach. You know, some of my favorite people who've ever been in and out through our communities are the artist types who've gone out into the world and really done something spectacular. And I'd like to see us celebrate them too more through time, those who have roots here and have gone out there. And also it inspires others locally that they can do that too. And you don't have to always leave to be famous or good. So thanks for what you do. I'll just have a couple thoughts I'll plant, just some tidbits to put in your thinking caps as you go forward. And Commissioner Kolpak, I remember when several of you were interviewed and put on the commission. And I used to be on it, but it's some thoughts just going forward. I'd love to see us at some point when we could get a poet laureate program. You know, Minnesota, there's all kinds of examples. Sarah Kabrinsky from Fargo is, I think, the poet laureate in Richmond, California, for example. And what a role! What a role! You know, think of the inauguration and the poet that gave the speech when Obama was brought into the presidency, the poet, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'd love to see us someday maybe see if we could figure out a poet laureate program. Another thought, and I'm really glad Commissioner Pepcorn is here, because somehow if we could connect the left hand and the right hand and people together, if we could take the artist thinking creative approach to our community and incorporate with the incentives that we give developers and businesses to grow our community, if we can somehow incorporate public art into those incentives, I'd love to see us do that. So that there's reasons for developers and investors and we help them and thank them for going further in investment in art. So I'll leave it at that, but it's just really great to see, because what you do is tangible and lasts for generations, you know, so thanks for what you do.
Commissioner, private investment is definitely something that we've talked about within our commission when we worked on this project. So thank you so much for sharing those ideas as well. We also think that it's very important and that public dollars work with private investment in creating that togetherness and that meaning.
And I don't remember, maybe Nicole, you might remember in Indiana, the name of a city where there was a philanthropist whose public contribution to the community was to donate funds. So when people did work and developed an architectural plan, they had a pool of funding to help them step up their architecture. And they ended up getting a way more visibly architecturally beautiful community, you know, type stuff. There's just some good examples out there. Pardon me?
Columbus, Indiana.
Yeah, I'll add, appreciate all the comments. A couple of things for consideration for now. You mentioned that looking forward to the next 10 years. What will that look like? I certainly think there is opportunity from our public-private partnerships moving forward, especially the considerations for the 2026 budget and the realities that are going to be in front of our commission, and depending on what happens at the legislative session as well. You know, where are we going to go? So I think that conversation is going to be very important. Also, we've had a number of changes at the local art groups level recently in leadership. So, and we're going to be seeing maybe some new leadership even on the commission here itself in the future, next generation coming in now on this commission. So I think it's an important time to have the conversation about what are we going to look like and what do we want that value to be for the community, both from an art but also from our culture. I mean, we've been pretty visually arts heavy, but you know, to that real place-making component, where do we go with our Project 2030 and the work we're going to do with the Land Development Code? The other point I'll make is we're also kicking off work now on all of our boards and commissions. So as part of that work, what is it going to look like, really defining the scope of the next generation of this commission moving forward, and the funding and the staffing support as part of that work. So I think it's a really good time to take a step back and really think about what do we want it to be? What does the staffing support look like? That's a real consideration. And then how do we expand on those grants and public-private funding partnership opportunities so that it's sustainable longer term? So I'm certainly looking forward to those conversations.
I just want to reiterate what you were talking about, culture. We are the Arts and Culture Commission, and we are art heavy, and that I do think that we need to think about what that means culturally, what we want to do as a commission for culture. And that's all.
I have a question. Whatever happened to that? I know at one point there was some inquiry into that old historic Native American statue that was on Broadway. Has it ever been found, or is it out there? Or?
No, but someone just asked me about that the other day, and I saw it in a rendering somewhere. I think, no, it might be wherever the Statue of Liberty went. And so, yeah, I just saw a reference to it like 2 weeks ago, which was odd. Yeah. I think moving forward, I would say maybe just for anyone watching publicly as well, is I know the Arts and Culture Commission doesn't meet at the dais in this room on a regular basis. We meet quarterly, and probably what we foresee moving forward, this is new for the board members, but February 19th, I think, is our next meeting. We'll meet in the chambers because we have some business to do. But our next 3 quarters after that will probably be in the Meadowlark Room. We typically meet in the Meadowlark Room because honestly, the last 2 years have been more about the board members being, a think tank to help staff and to kind of make sure we're, kind of not missing a beat on something. And so I would say all of us are pretty humbled by our limitations on resources and recognize that holistically. As we look to the goals for 2025, we're really excited about this report. It was a lot of work to stay focused and get it done. And, kind of a fun fact, we try to go with art expert RFPs for arts experts in the Midwest, like in Minneapolis and others. And that just wasn't something that they were willing, measuring art, as you can imagine, is a hard thing to do. And so we had to kind of customize this, and it took a lot more staff involvement than maybe originally planned. But we're really pleased with the results. We do feel like we have a lot of stories to tell as a result, and we'll be leaning heavily on our communications and government affairs team. So we're working on a kind of a media public engagement campaign. So you'll see more representation about stories from here. I think the rest of the general fund dollars will be used for maintenance and management of our existing artworks. And so, for instance, the Skyway, we have a sculpture downstairs in our garage that needs installation. And so things like that we just want to be good stewards of the assets that we have. And so from a Megan and Nicole standpoint, we'll be spending most of our time in project management in maintaining our existing assets. And so as you can imagine, as a board, that's not really exciting to talk about on the dais on, missing screws and things like that. And so and to Commissioner Kolpak's point, there is a significant leadership change in our arts community. And when we think about, Heard Among the Prairie or Heard Among, Marcia, the Arts Partnerships Project and things like that, when you think about that legacy that leaders in our community previously invested in, we're not quite sure where that's at. We don't necessarily believe the city of Fargo is needing to champion any of that. And so just wanted to be clear on that. Our work is really about what's unique in community creative placemaking. And so I think it took us a good 5 years to even figure out what is the city of Fargo's place in the arts community as part of a local government agency. future operational goals, I'll just say I'm not sure how the sustainability of this being in the planning department, and we've kind of maxed out, as I mentioned, our knowledge expertise. And so how does that knowledge expertise support? We're good with status quo, but if we need to do more than status quo, then, unfortunately, Commissioner Strand, just, even a poet laureate and how that gets supported in staff, it's partnerships with our other departments or other organizations as part of things like that. So I think we've got a good handle on status quo, but that's about it. And so and I think our board members understand that as well. And and then our learnings from the past decade, honestly, even to apply for a grant and to get that foundational support and that project management support, I think the other community needs in our community, like the land development code, housing crisis, things like that, require so much attention from our staff that, being able to work on things like utility box wraps with school districts is not where my expertise best lies. And so, so that's where also I'm, coming forward as part of this discussion as well, as we think about things for budget processing. Sorry, that's kind of a Debbie Downer way of looking at things. Turn off my notifications.
Well, I'll just have a closing comment then on the importance of art in any community of differentiating. You made this point earlier, anywhere other than anywhere USA, right? We talked about that earlier, and so what is going to be special about Fargo? I can tell you that sitting on the Economic Development Board for 6 years in my past, one of the first things visitors coming to this community look at is art and culture and the impact in the community as a differentiator. And it's so important when we think across the state, we have a workforce shortage, across North Dakota. What makes our community unique? And hopefully our arts and culture will help us be unique and be a destination location for that reason. So there's a real economic impact to that as well. And I just probably stating the obvious there, but it's so important.
What do you need from us? I'm just curious if you had your
Money.
John's magic wand question. If you had a magic wand, what would we deliver you? Money? Anna, that's true. That's a good answer.
We really need the money. I mean, it's a joke, but really, I mean, our budget is like what Nicole's saying, is only enough for us to maintain what we have in existence. And I don't know how many times I go out into the community and everybody's like, when are we going to have another call for art? When are we going to, and we just don't have that money, and we know it. But that leaves us in a position of what do we do next? How do we find that funding? So it really is the biggest conversation we have.
We also need money for a dedicated staff person to the art projects that is housed in the planning department. That person can search for funding and manage projects. And we would keep them very busy. They'd need therapy.
Didn't we once fund a person in your department for a year, Nicole, to work on the Arts Commission?
I'd say a half a person.
Half a person?
Yeah, half a person, and that is about as effective as that sounds. And I will say it's really, really hard. This is maybe to speak to the city commissioners. It's really hard to keep entry-level staff in a new program, right? And so really, if you think about, if you're hiring an arts, let's just say an arts administrator, and that person has to basically be run rogue in City Hall without a lot of oversight, it's hard to keep your morale and understanding of reality in check. And so we have studied the Minneapolis arts program and the St. Paul arts program extensively. I study public arts programs extensively across the country to figure out what and who we can be. And ever since we got the Fargo project money way back when. And it's everything under the sun, but it's a dichotomy of that private and public funding. And if we, Tanya Blanish doesn't know I'm going to say this, but if we think about the support the arts partnership needs in a metro-wide level and where that big impact can be, that is huge. And I seriously didn't tell her I was going to say that. And so when we look at the vulnerability of our nonprofits and we look at the vulnerability of our arts organizations themselves, on top of the work we're trying to do, it's huge. And so it's like, where do you start? And I'm not trying to discredit any piece of work or art that's created and made in our community. It's all vitally needed. But also housing is needed. Also, everything else is needed. And so as a staff person, how do we juggle that except one bite of the elephant at a time? And so how can we consolidate our resources to work on a metro-wide arts plan or a metro-wide organization and support that work? So Tanya and I have brainstormed, do we share a half a person? Do we, that kind of work? But then where does West Fargo and Moorhead fit in, right? And then how do we start to distinguish who does what, and so it gets very complicated. And then you add in, what about City of Fargo branding and City of Fargo elements? How do we make that unique? And then you start getting into that discussion, right? And so it gets complicated pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I think I even lost track of your question. It gets so complicated.
Wouldn't it be cool to I know budgets are budgets, but wouldn't it be cool to have a $500,000 for art? I mean, just to say, hey, we're going to invest as a community consistently, ongoingly, just a little bit, and give you the space and the lane to work in. $500,000 is not the end of the world, but right now we can't come. It's really tough, but it would be really nice to have that value of art in our community and say this is a community investment, and we prioritize it accordingly.
Well, another one we talked about, if you look at the impact of the infrastructure projects, the water tower as an example. We don't expect the Arts Partnership to lead the water tower project, right? That's our water utility experts leading that and our knowledge there. That was a seamless, other than the public not liking the design of the art itself, it was a seamless process, and that's where our work excels, right, in project management. And so the impacts of things like that, and so if we think about a 0.25% for infrastructure, right? Like the 64th Avenue Bridge is another favorite project. Mm-hmm. If Brenda Derrig, as a city engineer at the time, didn't know we have an arts program, and Megan and I are already in the infrastructure meeting about it, those ideas generate like that. And so, city administrator Bruce Grubb at the time with the water tower project, the city administrator and the mayor at the time with the art panel project. And, so these ideas that just spark, and having a vehicle to be able to do those is great. And so we're not saying that's, I think, the distinguishing aspect between local government and the arts partnership organization or other arts leaders in our community. How do we all work together strategically is part of that discussion.
And bear with me, but it's fun to talk with our artists and our arts leaders. Another practical, really far-reaching potential that we could explore someday is to get more artists placed on our commissions and boards. So that there's more of our tables have a creative thinker there, because they're not always there, and we don't think the same as other people. But that's just another thing. We could look for opportunities where we can place people in the decision-making process at the table who are artists, who think like artists, and, just a thought.
So about that money, I think that what we're hearing is that the staff, we just don't have the capacity, right? And that's really what comes back to having that funding, not just for what I was saying about the granting and stuff, but how we can better, assist everybody in that. And that really comes down to helping with the staff, right? And so really it does come down to the budget, and we really have to look at how we can get there together.
Can I add something real quick? So this sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does.
And so the other thing is, it's always the city of Fargo. We have multiple cities in our region, and no one else is participating. You know, and so money is the bottom line. And when you talk about a mill, that's great, but how about everybody else? Like MetroCog, where we have all the different, we have Horace and Harwood and Castleton, and it's just Fargo, and we can't do that anymore. And the other thing is, our planning department, that's planning, and we have lots to do just with planning. And so we've got all these other committees, and this is a worthwhile project, but we have to be a part of it. We can't be the sponsor. Does this sound familiar? This is homeless. This is the diversion. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like we need to be a part of it, but we can't be the author. Does that make sense to you? And so I do think this is a story not just for Fargo, but this is for the region. Everyone else has to start ponying up. That's I don't know if that is a little bit of a harsh message, but I don't know if you agree with it, but it's like, but Nicole, in our planning department, we have lots of planning to do, and we only have so much money for that department. And so all these meetings and all the contacts, that all takes time, and the video and all this. But on the flip side, when you look around here, how awesome is art right here in this building? Mm-hmm. Those signs right there, right there. When you walk the hallways, we have art everywhere, and that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. And so there's so many important things that we don't want to lose. The other thing is we can apply for these federal grants, a city can, that nobody else can. And so that's to me, that's the most important thing. We want to keep that. Anyway, so I apologize for rambling on, and sometimes I'm a little bit of the coarse reality, but I do think there's things we have to keep going. But some of this, we need to be the collaboration and not the sole sponsor. So that's the end of thank you very much for listening to my rant.
No, Commissioner Pepcorn, I couldn't agree with you more. And that when we talk about what the future is going to look like, we do need to start thinking as a metro. And MetroCog is a good model. And we've had some really good conversations there, but how do we bring that beyond the borders of Fargo and really bring them in community partners when it truly is a metro area that's attracting people? I mean, we have people living in Fargo and working in Moorhead, vice versa, living in Horace, working in right? We're just one big metro. So I think we have to start thinking differently about how we approach.
Can I just add one more thing? The other thing is we're getting a double whammy. Because of COVID, everybody had a lot of money, and now all the nonprofits that had lots of money, just like all of us, they should have put some money up for a rainy day, and nobody did. And so now, not only is the giving going down, but the revenues, it's tight. And so what happens is now everyone is turning to us because, like you were talking about, money. And so that's the thing. It's a challenge, and it's just. But the hard part is that's us. The budget is the bottom line. It's like, man, we have lots of things on the table, and we have a finite amount of money, and that's the hard thing. And so I think we need to collaborate with everybody to start sharing, and this is just one area.
And that's exactly bringing it back to this project, why we were excited as well, because we have now something to share that's hard information, that's hard fact. We've done this, this is what worked, this is what didn't, so let's build upon that. And that's very powerful. So I think the timing couldn't have been better in terms of, let's bring this, let's push the boundaries out a little bit. This is the document to do that.
You know, artists think out there, that's our job, is to be out there in the ether. And I'm going to only speak for me right now. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the commission and the board and the community, but in my opinion, there might be, and Charlie Johnson's here, there's a discussion coming about a convention center. I'm one of the ones who'd like to see if there's any way possible we could incorporate that and reshape it to include performing arts. I've been my whole adult life here in Fargo, I've watched the performing arts discussion can get kicked down the road, and kicked down the road, and kicked down the road, and replaced with typically sports facilities. But so there's chances, there's moments in time where we can advocate and contribute to the process of the community conversation that might lead to a result that's maybe not so expected. And I don't know if we'll ever get a performing arts center, and I don't know if it'll ever work with a convention center, and I don't know if it'll ever work in that process. But advocate for what you want. Culture, you're talking culture. Some of the most prominent people out of Fargo are musicians and performers. We have at least 3 nationally famous musicians. out of our community. We have a famous Metro opera singer from Fargo. I mean, we have the Peggy Lees and Angie Dickinsons. We just have Lawrence Welks. We just have a whole list of these people who can have an impact in the world. So I don't know. I'm just saying, think out loud, stick your fingers in the pie, stir it up, participate. Maybe we can create opportunities by being there versus just letting the train go down the tracks and it's going to go somewhere there on its own. Just my thoughts.
Just to follow up on what Dave said, I totally agree with you 100% about the collaborations, and this document I think will help with that. And I think it's to reiterate that how important this is to have those conversations with the other communities, because we are growing and we're practically all neighbors to each other. You have to think of some of like Kindred has its own art council now. Think about that. Kindred's this big. So we have to get those collaborations going so that we can really make this better, to everybody's point, right?
Well, and I think we have two, if they're still here, two fabulous regional leaders in here. And I think there's many different ways to partner and collaborate. I will also be remiss to, kind of shout out to Danielle and Tori too, because just your personal stories too about why they live in the Fargo metro area, and they could live anywhere in the United States. And not to, personal stories, but yeah, and so it's, again, that economic development driver of who we are and how we make what we are. I mean, I think planning department just will always be part of that, community planning, community building, community organizing. And it's really about, that larger strategy and understanding what we're specialists at and what other people can lead. And, our assistant director, Mark Williams, has helped me figure that out a bit. And also recognizing, otherwise I'll just be asking for staff every budget meeting. And so it's like, how do we, kind of manage what we have as well as tactically grow our scope of work. And we've learned a lot over the last 10 years. We'll continue to lead with those lessons. And thank you very much. And I don't know, Commissioner Kolbach, if you have any concluding things.
Well, thank you all again for being here and for serving on the commission and for the work we've done so far. And let's see where we go from here.